und herzlich willkommen bei Multilingual Stories. Mein Name ist Dr. Bettina Gruber und ich bin die Linguistin. Ich unterstütze voller Begeisterung mehrsprachige Familien mit Herz und Verstand auf ihrem individuellen Weg, damit ihre Kinder alle Familiensprachen erfolgreich und mit Leichtigkeit lernen können. In meinem Podcast bekommst du sehr persönliche Geschichten von Mehrsprachigkeit aus der ganzen Welt zu hören. Lehn dich zurück und lass dich inspirieren. Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei der ersten Folge im Herbst nach der Sommerpause von Multilingual Stories. Ich freue mich riesig, dass du wieder hier bist. Und ich habe heute, ich sage das, glaube ich, bei fast jeder Folge, einen ganz besonderen Gast. Aber heute habe ich wirklich einen für mich ganz besonderen Gast, nämlich meinen Mann. Und wie du vielleicht weißt, ist die Kommunikationssprache zwischen meinem Mann und mir seit vielen Jahren bereits Englisch. Und darum werde ich auch diese Folge mit ihm heute auf Englisch aufnehmen. Und ich bin selber schon sehr gespannt, weil ich mir sicher bin, dass ich heute Geschichten zu hören bekomme, die ich selber wahrscheinlich noch gar nicht gehört habe. Also stay tuned. Und hi and welcome to my podcast, Multilingual Stories. Hi, Alexis. How are you doing? And how excited are you to be here?
Hi, I'm very excited to be here. I've been following your podcast all this time. I've been listening to all the other special guests. I am so happy to be on the other side of the interface.
So, aside from being my husband, can you please introduce yourself a little bit to our audience? So, how did you grow up? Where have you lived? Which places? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Greek. I grew up in Greece. After I finished high school, I went to university in the US. Then came back for a few years in Greece, went to the Greek army like a good Greek is supposed to. But then I went back to the US. I liked it there. I finished my studies and I'm a linguist. I studied in Philadelphia. Sometimes I can bring in some Philly expressions, Philly slang once in a while when the time is right. Excuse me. And then I went. I got a position at the Institute of Linguistics in Utrecht. I lived in the Netherlands for a long time, until we met and started a family, and eventually moved to Vienna in Austria.
Right. So at the time of the recording of this episode, we're still in Greece. And, usually I start by asking about, the past, but I would really like to start this episode with talking about the present. So it's become a little obvious, I think, from what you just said, that you've been away from Greece for basically most of your life, at the end of the day. And we just got to spend roughly 5 months in Greece, in your former home, actually, where you grew up. So how are you feeling right now? How is it for you to be back in Greece after all these years for quite a, substantial time?
It's nice. It's I'm enjoying it. It's interesting to sort of be in Greece as a grown-up, so to speak. I mean, of course, I was grown up already, but as a young adult, if you like, in the literal sense, not as a teenager. Now I've got a family. I got talking to other parents. It's a lot of fun. We live in a sort of very typical Greek big city, dense urban neighborhood. Not a lot of green space. That's not good. But our kids go to school around the corner. We usually recognize someone when we're on the street. This is sort of a lot of fun. There is just within a 1 block radius, there is a specialty cat shop. brake store, auto brake store, auto detailing. There is, bathroom fixtures,
Pharmacies.
several hardware stores. Sorry, countless. In Greece, I mean, you cannot, they're usually, sometimes you find them side by side on the same block. No, there's more pharmacies than cafe shops. But basically, there's a lot of small businesses. The neighborhoods really are still very self-sufficient. I'd forgotten how much so. So it's really nice to be here. I'm really enjoying it. Our kids have taken to Greek and Greeks like fish to water. It was really great that they could already understand and sort of look after themselves in Greek when we arrived. I think they were a little treading water when they got in school, and it's really amazing to see the progress. All of them, but specifically about school. So our older ones have made with with writing and reading and their conscious grasp of the of grammar and word forms. They used to ask me sort of stuff that reasonably they didn't know. And now it's, now I check with them, they know everything, it seems.
I particularly like the fact that both of them are now actually scolding you in Greek too.
Oh yes, and they've also learned how to swear in Greek.
They have indeed.
They have, and I mean, look, I must have mentioned this to you before. When we're home in Austria, they don't get a lot of Greek except for myself. So sometimes I felt like, I should swear now and then because otherwise they wouldn't hear it.
Because it is part of Greek, communication.
It is part of the language. It is, and it's part of the language. And I don't normally swear much. So, I had to sort of, once in a while, I had to throw something out just so that they would hear it.
The other thing
now I don't need to worry about that.
No, you don't. And the other thing that they have always known how to do was to speak as loudly as Greeks without being actually upset.
Yeah, I don't know if that's it. I think this is more like what's the word? Sort of indulgent parenting. I think all children would be very loud if their parents could tolerate it, let's say, and let them,
But the other day I was actually, this happened to me again. I was at the platea, like right outside school, and there was this dad talking to a mom, and there was this split second when I thought, oh my God, they're fighting. And they were not a couple. I mean, it was one dad and one mom, and they were not fighting. And it took me a split second to realize, oh, no, wait, you're in Greece. No, they're not fighting. This is just emphatic talking.
They're not fighting, they're Greek, yeah.
Yeah. So, since you're sitting in your parents' living room right now, there's one story that a lot of my followers actually know because I keep telling it over and over again, because I find it so funny, but I would really like to talk about it with you. So I still remember to this day when I was sitting in the living room for the very first time, when I came to Greece for the first time, on the couch in the living room, and your dad was in his study and somebody said something in English and your dad couldn't understand it. And, I had known you for 2 years at that point. I had only ever heard you speak English the way you speak English now. And your dad didn't understand something that somebody said in English. And you started speaking and, I just expected you to say or repeat whatever was being said in Greek, but you didn't. Instead, you repeated it in English with a Greek accent. And that was the first time that I knew that you could turn that on and off consciously. You had told me that it was a conscious decision that you made, that you didn't want to sound like a Greek when you came to the States. Please tell us about this. How did you do this? How did you get rid of your Greek accent? And how can you turn it on?
First of all, I want to clarify. It's not that I didn't want to sound like a Greek.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to sound like a Greek kamaki. Now, this, I don't know, I'm hoping this is something that it has sort of waned a little bit. But once upon a time in the Stone Ages when I was young, mass tourism was relatively new in Greece. And the Kamakya were the sort of over-tanned young men that would go around hitting on all the blonde tourists on the beach.
Gold chain and open white shirt included.
The ones I saw were usually just wearing swimsuits or whatever, but
Okay.
but yeah, that kind, right? And they didn't speak a lot of English, and apparently they didn't have to, but you could really hear it a mile away. So the strong Greek accent is sort of something I associated with that. At my school, I learned some English in school. I went to actually an American. Former American mission school. So I went to an American school. We had people who could speak proper English, Greeks and non-Greeks. But sort of this is what I associated with the accent. And once I went to university in the U.S. and I was surrounded by Americans speaking American English. Yeah, at some point I could hear my accent, and this is what it reminded me of. And I didn't want to sound like that. Also, not also because I felt that these people were pests and they were bothering people, and I didn't want to feel like a pest just for sounding like them. So anyway, I don't think I did anything consciously. It's just I was immersed there. I have to say the US really agreed with me. I had a really good time, and the school was a perfect choice for me. I had a very good time there. I made friends. There were several people from my high school there, so it's not like there weren't any Greeks there, but they all more or less hung out together. Sometimes I would hang out with them, but my circle of friends were Americans, so it just kind of happened by itself. I was also, in the scheme of things, I was pretty young, right? I was 17, 18 when I went there. So, I don't think there's any danger of my German reaching any such level, even though I hear it at home all the time now. But I lost the accent, and then.
But you can still turn it on. That's what I find so fascinating. Like you turn it. To me, it seems like you don't even think about it. You can turn it on when you need or want to.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think I quite turn it on. I can enunciate like a Greek. I mean, there's English words in German, for example, that are part of German. And when you say them, even though you speak English, you will pronounce them like German words. So it's a little bit like that, but I don't think I do it quite. I don't want to go into the linguistics, but there's various phonological rules that I probably do not follow that Greeks would follow. There's some things that are clear signals of a Greek accent, and some of them I throw in, and then it helps. But it really makes a big difference with when hearing it, because if you're a Greek and you're hearing English, you can recognize the sounds of your own language better. If you learned it as a grown-up. I don't know if you know this story, but I was sitting in a loud room, sort of at a big dinner, with me and another Greek sitting on either side of an American, and the other Greek, Marika, our friend, and she's trying to say something in English, and the American is not understanding. And I'm sitting on the far side, and I can understand it simply because it's with a Greek accent.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it helps. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps for sure. What kind of accent do you notice in our kids? And has the accent changed? I'm really curious about that. Has the accent changed over the past few months?
Most definitely. So our little one, every summer he would lose the accent in a couple of weeks and sound like a Greek. And he did that again, I think. Our girls, by now, I think both of them they sound fine. I don't know. I'm sure people can pick up that they have an accent, but they no longer sound like foreigners speaking Greek. Not at all. It's they're doing not that I mind, but I think that it's a lot more fluent, a lot more natural.
Mm-hmm.
They also use it for a lot more things. So not only are they finally doing me the honor of speaking Greek to me just whenever they feel like it, but also sometimes when they speak to each other about things that are sort of location bound or Greece bound, they use Greek.
Do you remember the times when they would use Greek when they were in role play, like when they were still quite little, and they would use Greek between the two of them in role play? That was so cute. I remember that. They stopped doing that. Now they're doing it again.
Yes. The first time our oldest one spoke Greek, she was actually role-playing nurse with my sister.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
The first time, yeah, we got home. She went there. She started playing, and out of not using any Greek, she was saying things like, "Does he have a fever?
Really?
Has he thrown up?" She had to ask me what a button is or how to say to press, and said, "Yeah, press this if you need the nurse to come." Complex sentences out of zero. It's all in there.
It's all there. Yeah, it's all there. So here's the thing, we are still in the middle of spending time in Greece and they're fully immersed in the language. So of course, this is the effect that we're getting. The thing that I also know is, the foundation that we managed to build here over the last few months with this, adventure that we went on, it's going to last a lifetime. I know that it's going to last a lifetime. But I also know that, once we're back and after a few months, German will be so dominant again that, the Greek will change again and it will sound different again. The cool thing is that, you can kickstart that anytime again. I mean, not you personally, but one can kickstart that anytime again. And, one day, one of our kids will want to kickstart it maybe. And one day, maybe one of our kids will want to go study. Maybe they will want to come back and do the same adventure again in a few years' time. And then we know that the same thing will happen again. And that's the really cool thing. It's an up and down all the time, right? And if we were to stay here longer, at some point, I'd probably have to, think about how to foster their German, which I didn't have to think about for 5 months, right? Because it's not necessary. So I think that's pretty cool. It's encouraging. I have to, I keep telling this, the parents I work with, but now I have to tell it to myself as well. It's an up and down, and it's okay that it's an up and down. One thing that I want to ask you that I have actually never asked you before, I don't actually know how you feel about it. I know a little, but, not in detail. So you're the one responsible for passing on Greek to the kids. And, I know that you started thinking about it before our first one was even born, and that it was something that that you grew into and that you put a lot of thought into as well. What is it like for you to be the one being responsible for the language by yourself in a country where the language is barely supported? Although we do we do have a Greek restaurant around the corner now, and there are Greeks who speak Greek.
Yeah, we have Greeks who speak Greek. We're actually, excuse me, we're actually fortunate that we live in a city that has a long-standing Greek community and the oldest Greek school outside of Greece, dating from before there was a Greek state. So, we are in a place that has a historic connection to Greece, and things like monuments downtown. So on the one hand, it's a big responsibility. Like I was saying, sometimes I feel like, I need to swear because otherwise, where are they going to hear it? But, we're also very fortunate that being Greek and speaking Greek here is not such a strange thing that I have to worry about it being stigmatized. or that something that people wouldn't see the point of speaking or wouldn't want to be seen or heard speaking. When I was in the US, I met a lot of Greek Americans. And I think that, certainly for some of them, this must have been different. People move to the US, especially if they move as a family with kids. And their number one concern is to make sure that their kids speak English. Mm. Because they need English to have chances in life, to, assimilate and so on. And, sometimes depending on where people move from, their heritage language is seen as a problem. Actually, the same thing is happening in Greece when people moved, maybe not happening anymore, but a generation ago when people moved to the big cities from the countryside. The dialects, they were something people made fun of. So I think as a larger community, we're fortunate to be to live in a time and a place where the value of languages and dialects is understood and recognized by almost everybody.
I have to poke you again, because I have to poke you again because you somehow avoided the question that I asked you. What is it like for you to be the one, being responsible for this day in and day out? What has it been like? Our eldest is turning 11 in 2 months. 11, by the way. You've been doing this for 11 years now with a truly admirable consistency and continuity. Like, you never falter. You never switch. You never switch, right? You always speak Greek, and you picked up speaking Greek the second our firstborn was born. Like, you never addressed her in English, even though that was the dominant language for you at the point. It was completely natural for you to always speak Greek with them. But there must have been times when you, thought about it, when you worried about it. Were there times when you felt like this was too much to carry on by yourself?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll disappoint you, because yes, honestly, I felt, like I said, I was concerned about making sure that sometimes I was wondering if it would be enough, because they were only getting sort of me. And for some things, I just didn't know what to call things. Sometimes I would make something up. I would, try to think of what I thought something were called. And then sometimes a better term would occur to me. But the kids were stuck on the old one, on the original one that I used, and they would insist on using it. So I had to be careful. In one of your books by some Greek who grew up in Germany, there's something about her grandmother sort of not knowing the right words for stuff. Yeah, it's part of what we have to deal with. But as far as doing it, I have to say, in the past, before we had kids, I always found it really difficult to respond in a language different than the one you're being addressed in. Mm-hmm. So tandem, as they call it. I find that really difficult. I just, there's a really strong pull, I think, to just respond in the language that you hear. But I had an advantage that I started doing this. I was lucky because I started doing this before the kids could answer. And by the time they could speak, by the time any of them could speak, it was already a long established habit, so it was no problem to continue it. As far as doing it in English, I don't know. It's Greek. It was my language, like you've said. It's the language from your heart, and it was. Even though people would tell me sometimes that, yeah, come on, you're American. I'm not American. I'm Greek, and I never thought I was less Greek than some other people thought. I am who I am. And indeed, I felt like speaking Greek to them. It wasn't a surprise to me. It was a surprise to me that I like singing to our kids when they were born, right?
Oh my God, you sang so much. You sang
Greek
somehow
songs,
that
mind
stopped
you.
Because our youngest, when did it stop? Why did it stop? Because our youngest didn't like it, right? He didn't like to be sung to.
He doesn't like the singing, but also we sort of, we stopped taking the kids to bed together because they all go to bed at different times and stuff, and that was part of the routine. But yeah, I discovered I remembered more songs than I thought. I had to look some of them up, Actually, in the beginning, I made up a whole song that I remember just one verse from.
You did? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, the one that goes Peraston Beracambo. I used to sing this on
You're
the bicycle.
kidding? You made that up?
Oh yeah.
I had no idea.
And later, well, this part I didn't, but then I didn't know what else. This is all I remember, actually. This verse is all I then remember. Later, I looked it up, and it's a terrible song. It's really sad. It's horrible.
But you had made up better lyrics.
I made up better lyrics, and there's two dogs in the lyrics, and I used to sing this to our eldest when she was on the bicycle being ridden to places in this being the Netherlands. And whenever I got to the two dogs, she would go wow wow.
That's so fun.
So she was following along, listening and following along.
You should be really, really proud of what you have achieved in passing on Greek, because it is largely up to you, basically. And, not only have you always only spoken Greek to them, but you also religiously take them to Greek school every Saturday morning and spend the entire day mostly with them downtown Vienna. And of course, that's an advantage that we have being, I want to say close to a Greek school, but I know we disagree a little bit on the distance and the length, but it's an effort to do that.
Within reach of a Greek school. Yes.
Yes.
And actually, in fact, again, I want to repeat this. It's a famous historic Greek school. There's a Greek community here. We were also very fortunate that we met some other Greek families, and our kids get along, and so they have people to play with, and usually they will speak German to each other, but still, I think it's still part of Greece and Greek culture, and they hear us speak. They hear their parents speak Greek to each other, and that's also important. It's not just some weird trick that does.
And I think all in all, it really paid off. I think, so my impression was that during the lockdown time when there was no Greek school, you could actually tell from the progress that they made, or the lack of progress, compared to, going to Greek school once a week, for an hour and a half. It's not actually that much. But I always felt that you could tell the difference in how they, I don't know, I can't really tell the difference in how they speak that much, but overall in, the effort that was put into Greek and how natural it was for them to sometimes even use it. So so would you say that it's worth it?
Oh, it's definitely worth it. I guess that, the lockdown, it cuts both ways, because our little one spent more time with his dad that way. That's true. Paid off. But I mean, it's not like you get to choose and say, do I want to raise my kids in lockdown or not? I mean, you shouldn't. So
no, but Greek school overall is definitely paying off. Yeah,
it is paying off. It is part of the discussion that we have about why we do it. Yeah, sometimes I would have to I had to take them there over their protests. Why do we have to go to school on Saturday? And I want to stay in bed, or I want to play. But they never had anything to say against our argument, which was that this is part of helping you have good Greek and learn Greek and be able to fend for yourself in Greece.
Which has always been important to them.
It has.
I still remember. Do you remember this conversation I had with our eldest when she did not want to go to Greek school and she didn't want to do her Greek homework actually in Austria? And I said, just imagine you having kids. Would you want your kids to learn Greek when they grow up? And she was like, yeah, well, of course. Like, okay, yeah. But then you have to be able to pass it on. Yeah, okay, that made sense to her. It was so funny.
Yeah, that was like, yeah, mom, duh.
Yeah,
of course.
right.
Yeah. No, I mean, so sometimes it's difficult, but I also make sure that, we don't just, go there, go to school and, spend another hour getting back. We make an occasion of it. We go to the park, or we go around town. Usually we go to the park and they run around like crazy. We meet people if we can. Probably have a little too much candy sometimes. Can I say that?
Yes, you can say that on the podcast.
Yeah, so it's an occasion. It's I would love to, because now their classes are not at the same time. I would love to combine it with other activities, but it doesn't matter. We just hang out. We talk to other parents. There's always something to do, and we go there. We do it. And
so they get more out of it than just having to go to school. That's the whole idea at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that 90% of the people I work with are moms who pass on a language. I have quite a large following, actually, of moms who pass on the majority language, or who speak the majority language, but whose partner is supposed to pass on a different language. And some of the moms are struggling, and they're like poking their husbands to speak the language with the kids. And, they're frustrated with them not speaking it to the extent that it actually benefits the kids. Do you have any advice for those people who sit at home with a partner who does not pass on their languages? How can they support them? What could they do to motivate them or encourage them to speak their language more with their kids than they do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one for me, because I didn't need any external motivation to want it, right? But if I try to imagine sort of not. First of all, you can do it. I mean, I think that the biggest obstacle is when people feel that maybe they're not able to. I forgot to say this. Now it's coming out, but I have been outside of Greece for a long time. I do have a slight accent in Greek sometimes. I don't remember all the right expressions. So, but it doesn't matter. One thing we know about Greeks, about any language learners, is that if you make a mistake, if you make mistakes, children can filter it out. They learn the rules and they ignore the mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes when they speak. These are no different. So they'll pick it up anyway. It doesn't matter. And if they learn something that they don't say in the motherland anymore, that's okay. When they go there, when they pick up a book or listen to TV, they'll find out what people call it now. This is, I think, part of it. I mean, the other thing is, I don't know, like, if you're not going to do it, what would your mother say? See, it's not just for the kids to sort of be able to travel around. It's also for the family. It's for everybody.
I think you touched on a really important issue, and that's you said you never needed external motivation. You had such strong intrinsic motivation, which is what really motivates people, that this is probably what needs a closer look in cases where it's not happening. Like, why is the intrinsic motivation not there? What does it need for the intrinsic motivation to come up? And I can tell from the messages that I get from people, that for some moms, they're really suffering because their kids are not getting the gift of this extra language that they could be getting. But they just don't know what to do and how to support the partner better.
Yeah, I think the main thing I could point out from my experience is start early. Mm-hmm. The sooner, start at any time, right? I mean, I've heard you say that over and over, but if you start it right away before they can answer, it's a lot easier. You can say whatever you want. I mean, when you wanted to speak Greek to our kids, sometimes, they used to protest. Do it before they can protest, and then it's fine.
Yeah. And then it becomes a habit for the whole family.
Yeah. Everybody's in the habit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's one last thing, is there anything that I haven't asked you, any story that you would like to tell, anything that you didn't get to share, that you would still like to get out into the world?
I can't think of anything, to be honest. I think you asked all the leading questions. Yeah, so I just hope we didn't talk about the contributions of family to their speaking, but that makes a big difference, and not just when we visit, but also when we would get my dad on Skype, for example, and he could speak Greek to them, and my family, they don't speak German, they only speak English. They tried speaking English to our kids when we arrived there, but yes, a couple of times because we speak English to each other. I remember that when you were talking about that, but yeah, they figured out they don't have to. So yeah, it's just everybody can pitch in whatever way they have.
Mm-hmm. And every little bit counts. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming onto my podcast. After 3 years, it's been out there for 3 years. Thank you for your time. And I have to go pick up our kids in a little bit.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor. And go give them a hug.
I will. Thank you.
Bye.